This is Athens, Greece, and this city is incredible. I am one of the people who could easily spend a week or more in Athens. I love it here. When I'm in a place like Athens, Greece, I stay awake as late as possible and wake up as early as I am able. Visiting Athens was a lifelong dream of mine. I did extensive research on the sites and museum. Here is how I spent 3 insane days in Athens, and I don't think my wife is still mad, but maybe. All right, here we go. Day 1. We arrived at the Acropolis first thing in the morning, right when it opened at 8 a.m., before the crowds. I've heard the cruise ship tours arrived by the thousands around 9 a.m. We stood in a line of about 5 people at the ticket window. By the time we departed the site later, there were hundreds of people in line. After entering the site, we hired one of the local guides with another couple to share the cost, which worked out well. We walked up the Propylaea where the ancient Greeks walked for centuries. Once you walk up the final stairway through the gate, the Pantheon unfolds in front of you, and it is everything I imagined it would be. There are also other temples on the top that are very beautiful. And just a quick side note about the flag on the Acropolis. During World War II, when the Nazis took over Athens, a couple young teenage boys climbed the side of the Acropolis, took down the Nazi flag, and raised the Greek flag. And I do believe this started the resistance against the occupiers. Then after the Acropolis, we climbed Areopagus Hill, which is also known as Mars Hill, and is right next to the entrance of the Acropolis. In Greek mythology, the war god Ares was supposed to have been tried by the other gods here for the murder of Poseidon's son. The biblical significance of the hill is this is the location of one of Apostle Paul's most important gospel presentations and is inscribed on the side of the hill. Then we toured the new Acropolis Museum, which is just a short walk from Mars Hill. The museum was originally located at the top of the Acropolis and moved here in 2009. This building has pillars into the soil underneath to the underlying bedrock and float on roller bearings and are able to withstand a magnitude 10 earthquake. This phenomenal museum houses many treasures from the Acropolis and other parts of Greece. After a late lunch, we took a taxi to the National Archeological Museum. This museum was very impressive. It houses some of the most important ancient treasures in all of Greece. We spent hours here. It is absolutely not to be missed. I will be going back someday. After the museum, we jumped back into a taxi to Syntagma Square and watched the changing of the guard by the Parliament building. And then we ended the day with a long walk down Ermou Street, which is one of the main shopping streets in Athens, and then wandered through the Plaka and the many souvenir stores and restaurants and had a long dinner. Now on to day 2. We went on a self-guided walking tour, which started at the monument of Lysicates near the Acropolis. It was erected in 334 BC by Lysicates, a wealthy patron of musical performances to commemorate prizes for performances in the theater of Dionysus. Then just down the street is Hadrian's Gate, but on the way we saw these small ruins near this church. It seems if you throw a stone in Athens, you will hit an ancient structure. They are everywhere. Then we walked under Hadrian's Gate and toured the Temple of Olympian Zeus. This temple actually took 638 years to build, and the columns are immense. After visiting the temple, we walked by the Melina monument. Melina Mercouri was a famous Greek actress, singer, activist, and politician, and her story is well worth knowing. We then walked the trail and visited the north and east slope of the Acropolis, which includes the ancient theater of Dionysus, and the Odeon of Herodes Atticus. And by the way, they still hold concerts in the ancient Odeon. We then walked around the Acropolis and toured the ancient Greek Agora, including the Stoa of Attalos and the Temple of Hephaestus. And it is one of the best preserved temples in all of antiquity. Then we visited the Roman Agora and the Tower of the Winds. I was told that the inside of the tower had just reopened a few years ago for the first time in 200 years. And it could have been my favorite sight of the day. It is a complex structure with many functions. We had a late, long lunch at one of those great restaurants on the side of the Acropolis hill. After lunch, we took a taxi to Mount Lycabettus. I had no idea how big Athens was, and the view from the top was absolutely unforgettable. I'm so glad we did this. We hung out here for a while, then jumped in a cab and toured the Benaki Museum. After the museum, we walked to the Monastriaki district for dinner, and it was very lively here. So, on day 3, our first stop was the prison of Socrates at the bottom of Filopappou Hill. I know, they say this is not the actual prison. However, the sign said this was the cave where he was prisoned, so it was still kind of cool. And then we walked up Filopappou Hill. The views of Athens, and especially the Acropolis from the top of the hill, are unsurpassed. We were the only people up there, and it was totally worth it. Next, we walked to the Pnyx, the birthplace of democracy. Again, we were the only people here. After the Pnyx, we walked to Hadrian's library and then found a restaurant for another long lunch. After lunch, we stopped by the insane Athens fish and meat market. So much fun. Then after a break at our hotel, we went on a bus tour to Cape Sounion and visited the Temple of Poseidon for sunset. After, we then returned to Athens for a late dinner. Hey, I know this pace is not for everybody, and since then I've slowed down very much. But there's so many other sites, museums, and areas of Athens which we missed, but that's great because I can't wait to go back. Athens is a wonderful city with wonderful people, wonderful food, and some of the top ancient sites in the world.